conversation, and this is an opportune moment to look at the hidden violence that women endure. This from the economic state to environmental injustice. And our guest tonight has spent over 2 decades inside the UK and European politics, winning campaigns, shaping movements, and amplifying voices that are too often sidelined. Now, Rachel Palma Randle is a seasoned political campaigner, community activist, and the founder of RPR Communications, where she trains and mentors women and underrepresented groups across Europe and Africa in leadership, fundraising, and campaign strategy. Tonight, we are widening the definition of gender-based violence to include economic harm, environmental injustice, and corporate accountability, particularly through the lived experience and realities of women in places like Kabwe in Zambia. Thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. Welcome to African Diaries.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk about gender-based violence. Now, we often think that this is physical harm. That's the first thing that comes to mind. She was hit, he was hit. However, there is a wider frame that we need to take into account, isn't there?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the language of gender-based violence is now something we're more familiar with. I think people understand GBV, but I think it's much more than just a black eye or a battered wife, as you suggested. Gender-based violence can take all sorts of different forms, as you've sort of already alluded to. It's about, you mentioned Kabwe. This is a place where we work. My organisation is Action for Southern Africa, a UK-based charity, and we work with the women and children, particularly of Kabwe in Zambia. It's dubbed the world's most polluted town. And unfortunately, the women and children are on the front line of that sort of economic and environmental disaster. I think if you think about corporate and social responsibilities, we often think in spaces of mining communities. That's talking about violence against women, perhaps within mining communities. But what it doesn't really take into account is the corporate impact on women and children. So if you think about the hats that women wear, but particularly in mining communities, they're the family maker, the home provider, the looking after the family when the men are working away in mines, but they're also now bearing the responsibility of looking after men, their husbands, their sons, their brothers who have been sent back from the mines too ill with TB or symbiosis to work again. So now they take on the economic role, and this violence that sort of pervades the communities, because you're now having to think about economic power. They're having to think about the environmental impact of lead poisoning on their children and their children's opportunities. We know 95% of children in Kabwe have lead poisoning. So that's violence against future, about opportunities, and women are very much on the front line.
Rachel, why is this form of GBV so rare in terms of accountability? What is it about the context that allows those who are, of course, the perpetrators in context to just slip away?
I think it's the sort of the silent violence. Actually, it's not. There's no bruise. There's no cuts. There's no physical witnessing of this violence. It's more underground, more subtle. I think we understand quite rightly the damage physically that that poor mining rules and responsibilities have upon men's health, but we shouldn't minimize that in any way. But actually, it is the women who have to then find new jobs, that women have to take the children out of school because they need more people to be trying to earn money to put food on the table. So it's this silent, unsaid damage that's done by having to battle maybe mining corporations like Anglo American or many of the others in the region, who you have to prove that you are ill. You have to prove and relive your trauma over and over again as you see people around you slip away and die. So it's not documented. I don't think we have enough data, and it's not really spoken about enough.
The voice there of Rachel Palma Randle, who is a seasoned political campaigner, community activist, and the founder of RPR Communications. We are currently looking at the realities of silent forms of GBV and can further address these. 41 after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. If you want to send through your questions, you're more than welcome to do so. +27 83288 6684.
As the sun rises on 2026, Channel Africa celebrates with you. This year, may prosperity flow like water. May unity strengthen our nations. And may every African story inspire the world.
Channel Afrique vous accompagne dans cette célébration. Que l'espoir illumine notre continent.
Que as vozes de África ecoem com orgulho.
From all of us at Channel Africa, we wish you and yours a joyful, successful, and prosperous 2026.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Turn the page. It's African Diaries on Channel Africa.
It is 42 minutes after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. We are still in conversation with Rachel Palma Randle, who is a seasoned political campaigner, community activist, and the founder of RPR Communications. And we're looking at the reality of these silent and almost hidden violences in context, and that, of course, concerning GBV. Rachel, you spoke to an extent about Kabwe and your work there. Perhaps yours is to now give us a full overview of what it is you do in Kabwe.
Yeah, so again, it's all centres around South Africa. So at the moment, there's a 140,000 class action against Anglo America in the Supreme Court in South Africa, which very much puts onto the front line this discussion of corporate and social responsibility and what good mining companies should be doing in 2026, which is not just extracting minerals and wealth from communities, but building positive legacies. So we work with grassroots communities, with women and children in these mining communities to try and have their voices heard, to understand what the barriers are, what the problems are in those communities, sort of bring a reality check to the corporate world on the real lived experiences of individuals. So we talk to people, mothers like Loveness in Kabwe, who's just trying to keep her family safe from the lead poisoning that's in the soil that her children play in and eat, because kids do, don't they? Or maybe Bertha, who can't grow vegetables to feed her family because the soil is so contaminated. Or another lady, Mary, who's just watching the impact of lead poisoning on her daughter's young body and realizing the devastating effect this is going to have on families, children and pregnant women for generations to come. So we've worked very much in solidarity with these communities and these women to raise up their voices and try to drive change.
Rachel, you cited that this class action against Anglo-American is being held in South Africa. What is the significance of that particular context, and what could it change in the context of the globe?
I think it's a 140,000 class action, so that's I'm not a legal eagle, but that is a precedent in terms of legal cases. So if this court case is allowed to go forward, actually it would change the responsibilities of corporate mining organisations, that they would have to take responsibility for historic poisoning. The mine in Broken Hill in Kabwe was owned by Anglo American between 1925 and 1974. And in that terms, it seems like it's historic poisoning and polluting, but actually this is a real living day crisis that the people of Kabwe feel on a daily basis. So it would change the context of what responsible mining authorities are expected to do now, and what actually you should do anyway, because it's the right moral, social thing to do and not have to be forced through endless legal cases to do what's right for communities.
Rachel, do you think that there is enough political framework to hold these big corps accountable?
No, I don't think so. I think that there is a lot of freedom. There's a lot of unregulated work. There are no consequences broadly for mining corporations. They can just move from one country to another, or in the case of Anglo, start to remove themselves from South Africa without having paid restitution to the people of South Africa and the other mines that are in the area. And this is not just a Zambia issue or an issue for Zimbabwe. This is a recurring pattern of destruction of communities and well-being across the globe. So there's not enough of a framework, but there is always an opportunity for these giants to do better and do more. They are dominant because they have a no-nonsense attitude and can get things done. If they put their mind to it, they could really change the fortunes and well-being of people in these communities.
Let's talk about that very thing, putting their mind to it. I think more often than not, we are more likely to receive statements of apology and promises that might not necessarily be met. So for somebody who has had experience dealing with these communities, of course, these in question, what would accountability look like in this context?
I think it's about honesty, and I think it's about communication. It's about bridging the gap between sort of the corporate mandate and the glossy magazines and the PR, and really engaging beyond tokenistic measures to real people's lived experience. Because for me, that makes sense in a business model, right? You want your reputation to be as good as your product. You want you don't want to be fettered with court cases and ongoing disputes and battles and bad press. Actually, this isn't a one or the other situation. Talking to people and letting people in these communities be heard, and actually making very small changes in some cases. I know you're speaking to Zianda later from Justice for Minors. There are things that can unlock major compensation for families and men that would take nothing. It's no skin off anyone's nose at a corporate level. So it's engaging and unlocking some of these challenges, I think, would make people feel like they're really being heard.
Rachel, I think we'll park it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure. And more than anything, the team and I commend you for the work you're currently doing.
You're very kind. Thank you for having me.
The voice there of seasoned political campaigner, community activist, and the founder of RPR Communications, Rachel Palma Randle. And we were looking at the silent, the hidden violences when it comes to the context of GBV, and specifically honing in the mining sector. 49 after 10 p.m. Central Africa time.
Africa.